All right, everyone. Well, welcome to our second edition of our Unleash Your Copilot Superpower session for the healthcare industry. My name's Nick Stillings. I'm a modern work solution architect with Microsoft. I'm going to bring our other presenters on screen for a second. So, also with me is my peer Andy Morris and Mark Barnes. Maria Kurian is also joining us, and Nick Vargas Villa will be in as well. So, we'll each be delivering part of the session today. And guys, I'll let you introduce yourself as we come up to your session. So just to kind of keep us on track as we go. And then let me go ahead and bring up our slides as well for the rest of it. Our intent today is to go over a variety of topics based on the feedback from the January session that people said, hey, we'd like to find a little bit more out about that, or how to get started with it. And so let me take care of a couple of housekeeping items. Guys, I'm going to take you off the screen, and then we'll go ahead and dive into the content itself. So first up is, as we go through, if you have questions or things, you can drop those into the meeting chat. We'll be keeping an eye on that. I don't right now have any polls, but we might add one toward the second half just to kind of get a sense of what people are using for measurement tools when we get to that part of the session. You can also follow along if you have trouble hearing one of us. If you go up to the more than languages settings inside of Teams, you can turn on closed captioning, which makes it a little bit easier to see. And you can also use reactions up at the top bar to kind of just give people some feedback as we go. All of us are technologists, which means we have low self-esteem. So feel free to throw out some hearts and claps and things as we go. That always kind of helps. We'll also be recording the session as well, too. So as we go through, if you don't want to be part of the recording, we'll at the very, very end, we'll unmute people for questions, so you can just stay on mute at that part. Otherwise, we'll publish the recording after as well, too, so people have a chance to review it if they weren't able to make it. Here's our flow for the day. So I'm about to go off screen, and I'm going to invite Mark to come up to kind of kick us off and give us a little bit of context. And then, Mark, if I remember, you're going to screen share at that point, right, to grab control? And then Nick Vargas Vega and Maria Kurian are going to take us through Copilot agents. This is a really exciting part of Copilot. We're actually able to have agents do processes on our behalf. My favorite quote is, every user needs a Copilot. Every business process needs an agent. Then Andy's going to take us through some scenarios around business value. This continues to be a focus point for Copilot because we want to make sure that people are able to measure the impact of it, especially the full Copilot license and the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat, which is actually included in Microsoft 365 to be enabled for everyone. I'll do a quick check-in on some of the adoption resources we have, and then we'll step through measuring adoption and impact with tools like the Microsoft Copilot dashboard. Finally, I'll come back and wrap us up and drop in a link for a survey. So that's the plan for our flow. How's that sound, Mr. Barnes? Are you set for your part?
I am set. Thanks, Nick,
All right.
for getting us started. Really appreciate everyone being here this morning. And let's see, there we go. Really just wanted to get us started with a reminder that we have customers on this call from every facet of the healthcare industry. And so we really see so much opportunity for AI to positively impact just healthcare all up. Provider, pharmacy, med tech, insurers, all of it. But there's some really kind of big numbers that from a Microsoft perspective, industry analysis that we're seeing out there. So I want to just kind of highlight that as we kick off. One of the ones that really pops out here for me is 14 million. That's how many providers will suffer from a projected shortage of workers worldwide. And that potentially impacts everything. It's all about patients. It's all about positive outcomes. But man, we've got such a great opportunity to move that ahead. So I want to just really kick us off with the short video before we turn this over to Nick to talk about agents. And this is one, actually, our CEO, Satya Nadella, had posted this up on LinkedIn. So I pulled it out, and we'll watch it for a moment. All right. Hopefully everyone can just start to appreciate Copilot within the flow of their work, how powerful that can be. How much time would that have saved just in that situation, being able to use it across Word, PowerPoint, and Teams? And we've got so much more with Copilot just being pervasive and the UI for AI that we can access in so many ways. So at this point, let's kind of jump in, because that was just a straight up Copilot use case. And now let's hear a little bit more about agents, which have been a hot topic pretty much at every customer we go to. So with that, Nick, can I bring you on screen?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. I think you can either take control or I can click through if you want me to.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take control.
All right.
Morning, everyone.
Thank you.
So, taking a look here, and Mark, I think this may not have the slides that we put in there. That's okay. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we can just do it that way. Does that sound all right?
Sorry about that, Nick. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, all good. So I wanted to start off by just giving you all some perspective on how Microsoft envisions agents. And Nick, the other Nick, did a good job of emphasizing that agents in M365, agents built with Copilot as the orchestration engine, are a huge part of Microsoft's vision for the future of productivity and for collaboration. And so we're starting off with this quote from Jared Spataro, Chief Marketing Officer for the AI work team here at Microsoft, talking about how we want to think of Copilot as a smartphone and agents as its apps. Your smartphone is where you interact with those apps. The apps do all kinds of things, from booking a ride to managing your finances, helping you learn new language. Just like apps, agents will be able to do a wide variety of things. And in essence, agents are the new apps for an AI-powered world. Okay, so pretty high level, but ultimately a good example of the position that agents are taking within the M365 collaboration ecosystem, and demonstrative of how much Microsoft is going to be investing in this technology and how much value that we see this technology bringing to you all, to your organizations. So with that out of the way, we can get into a bit more of a technical conversation about agents over the course of the next 20 minutes. We'll cover a few slides that provide some foundational concepts to inform us on how agents work and what they can really do. And then we'll have the opportunity to do some demonstrations as well. And myself and my peer, Maria, will show you some hopefully interesting and exciting implementations of agents that showcase their potential. Now, getting into the more technical concepts behind agents, I'm starting off with just an architecture diagram for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And this is something that folks may have seen. It's been around for quite some time. It was one of the diagrams that we used very early on in Copilot's rollout to help organizations, customers, and individuals understand how Copilot for M365 works. And ultimately, I don't want to go through this because we're going to get more into the agents piece, but just to break it down at a very high level, okay, we have a variety of entry points into the Copilot experience. And that can be your familiar Office applications like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It can be your collaboration and productivity applications like Teams and Outlook. It can be the M365 chat experience in your browser through the M365 chat portal. There are quite a few different ways to get into the Copilot experience. And once you access a Copilot experience through one of these entry points, the interactions that you have are sent to the Copilot orchestrator. And the orchestrator is in charge of doing a lot of different things to help bring all of this AI value back to you. And that includes looking at your prompt, having the large language model evaluate your prompt, and then querying the Microsoft Graph to ground its responses in your business data. And this is really the key point that I was trying to get to with this slide, is that the out-of-the-box experience for M365 Copilot is to ground its responses in the Microsoft Graph. And for folks that are not familiar, the Microsoft Graph is a fabric underlying the entirety of the M365 service, which provides information about all the data in your tenant. And that is your Outlook mailbox and all the emails that you're sending and receiving, and that is your Teams chats, then all the conversations that you're having. It's the SharePoint and OneDrive files and lists and libraries, and the Entra ID, the directory, all the users in your organization. All of this information is stored in the graph, and all of the interactions that we have via Copilot are grounded in that knowledge. And so it brings us to the conversation of agents, because agents and the primary value that agents bring is centered around two major potential implementations. One is to take that pattern that we just looked at, where prompts are being sent and grounded in the graph, and curate the scope from within the graph that grounding is taking place. And so you'll see a lot of agents that are focused on common M365 knowledge sources like SharePoint and OneDrive. However, even though the core Copilot experience has the ability to ground in that knowledge, the ability to create agents that scope the experience down to a subset and provide custom instructions that further curate the experience of the Copilot interaction can bring tremendous value. Okay, so that's the kind of first scenario, is we want to envision and understand the value, the power of building agents that do what Copilot is doing for us, but in a very targeted, scoped, and curated way that lines up with the business processes that you all are carrying out on a day-to-day basis, right? So using agents to ground in the graph, but being more particular, being more specific about where we're grounding and how we're processing the information that we're getting back. That's one major value proposition for agents. And the next major value proposition for agents is going to be beyond the graph. So we have the ability to connect and ground in the graph, and through agents, we have the ability to point to subsets of the data in the graph. We also have the ability to invest in customizations with agents that get to data that lives anywhere else in the business environment. And that is the other very significant, very powerful mechanism that we can leverage agents to bring automation and to bring generative AI to our business processes. And so that's, over the course of the demonstrations that we're going to see here, what we want to actually show you how this works, how approachable it is, how relatively straightforward it can be based on where the knowledge lives and how we think about connection and authentication and things like this. And so one last point that I'll make about what we're looking at on the slide here is a differentiation between two different kinds of agents that we can create from Copilot Studio that change our capabilities to some degree. And so that differentiation is declarative agents and custom engine agents. And what we mean in making this distinction is whether or not the agent is built on top of the M365 Copilot Foundation. Okay, so these declarative agents are going to be built on top of this orchestrator. And so this same orchestrator and the exact implementation that you're seeing here is utilized by declarative agents, but allows us the opportunity to define unique scopes of data within the graph, allows us the opportunity to find custom instructions that may change how the agent processes interactions from users, and allows us the opportunity to combine information in the most interesting ways and the most relevant ways to the processes that we're supporting in our business. So declarative agents are built on top of the foundation of M365 Copilot. They use the same models that the Copilot service is already running in your organization. And there's some other considerations around what these are and how these work, but that is an introduction. Custom engine agents give you the opportunity to leverage and implement more customized orchestration experiences. And we don't have enough time today to really get into and crack open the complexity and the possibility that that really brings forward, but we will show you this to some degree and hopefully start to at least provide some clarity on what are the difference between these kinds of agents and when and where should we choose each of these options. And so it brings us to the question of how do we create agents? Okay, I've been talking, we see agents are really cool. We can use them to customize the scope of what we're grounding against. We can use them to customize the instructions that are being implemented in each interaction. We can do really a number of additional things even beyond this. How do we get started? And there are a few different entry points available to us. Agents in SharePoint is available for all M365 Copilot licensed users, as well as the opportunity to enable a pay-as-you-go model that allows for a broader scope of users to interact with. And agents in SharePoint are primarily created and interacted with from the SharePoint UI, from the pages in the browser. And we're not going to focus too much on that. So we really want to get into some of the more interesting customization opportunities. And that's going to take us to the two different experiences for building agents that you see in the middle of this table, Copilot Studio, and the Copilot Studio powered agent builder in M365 Chat and in the Copilot app in Teams. These are two different entry points to creating custom agents that provide the ability to go through this customization configuration process and create that extensibility scenario for your business processes. And they are tailored to different skill sets and come with slightly varying capabilities and slightly varying governance and architectures, governance considerations and overall architectures. So Copilot Studio Agent Builder is a more lightweight offering that you find directly in the Copilot apps. It gives you the ability to create these declarative agents, the kinds of agents that are built on top of the Copilot for M365 Orchestrator. Requires no coding skills whatsoever. It's a completely wizard powered experience. Next, next, next. Here's the instructions. Here's the starter prompts. Here's the content sources. A couple of other opportunities to further customize the capabilities of the agent, and we publish. Very, very easy and straightforward. And Maria is going to show us exactly what that looks like and how much value we can realize very quickly utilizing Agent Builder to model business processes and offer users the opportunity to leverage natural language to interact with the business data and to use natural language to drive the business processes that they are carrying out on a day-to-day basis. And then we have Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio is the fully featured low-code platform that allows us to build agents of all kinds. We can build declarative agents in Copilot Studio. We can also build custom engine agents that leverage unique and customized large language models, as well as natural language understanding models, as well as even more advanced features like topic curation and custom authentication patterns and publication to unique channels like enterprise websites and really a wide range of things. We have courses and workshops and deliveries and trainings that cover Copilot Studio over the course of a full day. And even then, it can be challenging to really speak to the full breadth of the capabilities of the product. So these are the two entry points for building agents. That is probably good enough to get us into our demos. So I had a couple more slides here. This is an architecture slide of what an agent is made up of. And we can come back to that if there's interest. That's in the deck, so for reference, folks can circle back to that. But let's go ahead and get to our demonstrations and show you all some more interesting things. So I'll pass it over to Maria now to walk us through the agent builder experience and show us what we can do utilizing Agent Builder.
Thank you, Nick. Hi, everybody. I'm Maria Corain. I'm a modern work cloud solution architect, focusing on Copilot in the health and life sciences organization now. So as Nick has gone through very clearly on the use why an agent, what are the different flavors of agent, the declarative and the custom engine agent, and the different endpoints we can use, we can get to these agent to create these agents. I think before we go ahead and, one of the big questions that most of our customers have is what kind of qualifies, what does an agent really help us in, meeting in our day-to-day jobs? So I think one big key point to note here is Agent Builder can significantly enhance your productivity and efficiency for any business users. So you don't have to be a pro code or a citizen developer to create these, to develop tailored solutions of various use cases. And how does the Agent Builder experience do that? It allows you to create and deploy agents that helps you with your routine tasks and streamline your business processes without requiring any coding experience. And that is what we're going to do today. We're going to build an agent. When I say we, Adil Eli is a user in here in my tenant, and he is a HR executive within the Contoso Healthcare organization. On a day-to-day basis, his job, he is in the recruiting recruiting part of the organization, and he needs to build out job descriptions on a daily basis for various roles that they recruit to at Contoso Healthcare. He needs to review all the resumes that he gets for those job descriptions, and then he need to kind of score those resumes or have a overline of what candidate would match that specific job description the best. Now, the main thing what we achieve for this use case is through agents is that this agent needs to be grounded on specific data sources. So the resumes are on a specific SharePoint site in this use case. So we're going to ground it on just those content. So I'm hoping all of you are aware of the Copilot 365 Copilot chat experience. So you see the work and web toggle. So Adil's logged in and we have the work toggle on. So if you see the panel on the right side, that is where all your agents are. So as you can see, you might be seeing Visual Creator, and you can create agents through this create an agent experience right on the right side. And this experience is what we refer to as the agent builder experience. So first, I want to show you an agent that I built using this experience, and then we'll go over step by step on how to build one as well. So I have the resume coach. That is Adil's go-to agent, like I said, which is grounded just on SharePoint site, which has all the resumes. So I have put in some starter prompts. So let's say this makes it easy for your end users if you're building one for them, or for you as an end user to keep track of what are the prompts that you want to go through for this use case. So I'm going to prepare a job description for a clinical operations manager. So Copilot is going to go in and based on, again, web, or you can even scope it to specific data sources, it's going to come up with a possible job description for clinical operation. As you can see, we always say AI generated content may be incorrect, so it requires a review. But lately, I've been having pretty good in terms of the quality, like we've had great improvements over the time. And I love this job description on what it requires for a clinical operations manager. Now, the next step, I had some prompts already built in here. Like I said, I have a list of resumes in a SharePoint site, and I'm going to go show that right after we run this prompt as well. I want to create a list of all the resumes with a brief summary of the experiences of these resumes in a table. Again, Adil is using these resumes from the SharePoint site. So it just creates and gives us a rough, the table with different resumes. And I guess it did not pick the name, but maybe we could run that again, and it should show what are the operations, what is the experience, and whatnot. Once that is done, I want to compare and score the resumes from 0 to 5 for based on the description of the job for a clinical operations manager. And it's going to give me a score of, in this case, I only had John's resume in there. So I guess it's just gives me a score based on the job description that it was generated. And looks like the overall score is 4.3. It gives John demonstrated strong alignment, qualification, responsibility for this role, and gives me an gives me a summary of why it picked John's resume for this role. Now, how do I build this resume? The resume coach, that's what I'm going to go to next. So if I went in here, you can see this shows me all the agents that I have built. I, as an adults, built using the agent builder experience, and the resume coach one here, and I click on edit. You can see it's got a name, a details, a description. The most important part of building an agent lies in the instructions. So the more concrete and the more elaborate you can be in your instructions, the better results it promises. I'm guessing you would have heard, like, when you're just using M365 Copilot, a lot of it lies on the prompting and how elaborate and concise your prompt is. It is the same logic when it comes to agents, but prompts are replaced by instructions. So go as descriptive as you can with instructions. And I'm going to show you an easier way to go get there, or to add that description if you are not good with words like me in filling all these things out. And then, like I said, Contoso HR, that is my SharePoint site that's used for grounding this particular agent. And I've built in a couple of starter prompts here for so that I know the workflow my agent kind of needs to follow, and I can keep track of it without having to type anything in as well. So with something of this kind for Adil, who does day in, day out on the recruiting front, this does save time in automating that particular business use case. Now, let's go ahead and build a new one. I have another website called Contoso Learning here, and a couple of documents that are shared in here. So me as a user, I want to create a new agent. So either there is a two-step option. You can either describe what you want of your agent with words, and it's going to create that for you simultaneously, or you have the approach of using some of the out-of-the-box templates that Microsoft has provided for you. Mine is healthcare. I wanted to be a bot in Contoso Healthcare for learning, so I'm going to go off a learning coach template. And one of the main reasons why I do that is because it's pre-populated with a lot of content, specifically those starter prompts that I was talking about, instructions, as well as some of the better descriptions. So if you're not good with words like me, I would go in with the pre-populated template. Now, if you don't want to have a describe-based mechanism to create it, you can always toggle back to configure, wherein you have the same approaches, and you can see we do have a couple of good prompts placed in here. But I want to make sure this bot is grounded just on my Contoso learning learning site. So I'm just going to go ahead and get the URL for that. Give me a second. So I go in and get my site URL, go back to my agent, put that in here. Once I've done that, it gets added to my added knowledge sources. And if I want to go in and modify something here, maybe the starter prompt to a topic, learn about a specific topic, I can go ahead and I don't want a learning plan, maybe not, I can delete or add more starter prompts as needed for my use case. So if I've gone ahead, done this, I just have one data source. So another big thing that I rely heavily on is the canvas, the test canvas that you have on the right side. So you can actually test a particular, scenario, a particular agent that you're creating. Learn about Copilot in healthcare. And it's going using the model, the architecture that Nick had shared on his during his slides. So it gives me, here are some use cases. As you can see, it's pointing, the source of this answer is from the Copilot learning site, and it has citations to this particular document as well as the response. So I feel it's good enough. I can choose to share, choose to create this particular bot, or I can also, once I've created it, it's going to give me options on how I can share this particular agent as well. Okay, let's give it a second. So there we go. It's created. Now you have successfully created an agent. This link, you can change the sharing settings based on the settings that you have configured in your organization. You can share it to users in a group or just anybody in your organization. But again, this depends on your configuration within your tenant. I'm just going to use anyone for that matter. Then you can just copy this link and save it, save the sharing settings, get this link, have this shared with users. If you for the choice that you made on the sharing settings page, you can close it out and you have the same share experience in here as well. But you should be able to see your learning coach bot appear here with specific use cases. So that was a quick overview of the agent builder experience and how you can create a declarative agent with maybe just a few descriptions or even going off a template or with a simple configuration without requiring any code. That's
Awesome.
it from
Awesome.
me.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Over to you, Nick.
Maria. Yeah, very, very exciting. And not to rush you along here, but in order to get to our next demo, I'm going to jump right in. I think it's really incredible what we can do with Agent Builder and just customizing the way that Copilot works using our SharePoint Online knowledge sources, right? So it's the same knowledge sources that we're already using in the core Copilot experience, but by curating the scope of the grounding, by providing those custom instructions, by publishing to the target audience that facilitates those business processes, absolutely, we can bring some very interesting value. And if what you're wanting to do is not being met by the capabilities of Agent Builder, then we graduate to Copilot Studio. And within Copilot Studio, the feature set, the possibilities grow even larger. And I'm going to try to showcase a few of the most interesting capabilities within agents built with Copilot Studio, knowing that we're not going to see how all of these things are built end to end, but really just get to some of those really impactful, really high value configurations and implementations to inspire us as far as what the platform is really capable of. And so the first thing that I want to walk you through is, okay, we browse to Copilot Studio, we go into our agent library, we create a new agent. How much work from that point does it take to offer our users a solution? And it's incredible how little, okay, the development overhead really has to be. For example, I've created this agent, and simply by adding knowledge to it, we can get this agent ready to go in a few clicks. When I come into this agent and I choose to add knowledge to it, I'm offered a variety of knowledge sources. This can be public websites, this can be SharePoint knowledge, this can be content within the Power Platform's Dataverse. You can upload documents directly to the agent. And over on the Advanced tab, you're going to find enterprise graph connectors deployed by search administrators that can enable access to an incredible catalog of enterprise applications. For now, though, I just want to show you all the Dataverse knowledge source because the Dataverse, a Power Platform data source, which supports the entirety of Power Platform connectors in terms of how we populate the table data in that Dataverse, can be incredibly powerful. And so I've added here a data source from within the Dataverse of this environment that points to a table which contains a list of all the hospitals in the state of California. And it contains extensive metadata about these hospitals. And I've added this data set to my agent, and simply by going through that few clicks it takes to add the table as a knowledge source, I can immediately start to offer value to my users that want to use natural language to understand the information contained in this knowledge source. And so I'm just showcasing this to you all from the Copilot Studio experience because I want to show you how some of these tools work in terms of authoring. I can see the interactions happening on the right-hand side here as I go through the testing experience. I can see the logic being utilized by the agent in determining where to find the most relevant information happening in the activity map. And I can start to see the value of some of these responses. I can ask my hospital lookup agent which city has the most hospitals. Again, this is a data source hosted in the Dataverse that contains a list of every hospital in the state of California, as well as a variety of data about those hospitals, their revenue data, their service data, their information, right? I can ask the service which city has the most hospitals. It tells me Los Angeles has the most hospitals. I can ask the agent, look at all the hospitals in San Francisco and identify which one has the most gross patient revenue and get some information back about the business performance for hospitals that are included in my data set. These are what we call multi-turn interactions. So I can ask follow-up questions. I can take multiple turns in terms of the context, and that context is preserved. So when I ask for which hospital in San Francisco has the most revenue, and I get told that it's San Francisco General, I can ask a follow-up question without fully explaining the context and just say how many beds are available at San Francisco General, and I can get some data back. And I can continue asking those contextualized questions, and the agent will preserve the context, preserve the interaction history, and continue offering me valuable responses. And I could show you a lot more about this agent, but I want to try to squeeze in one other demonstration here. And so that's the first major takeaway. I just have to come into the knowledge area, point it to my data, and I'm off and running. It's actually quite straightforward. And so what I've just shown you is what we consider a custom engine agent. But if I come into my environment and I open up the Copilot for M365 customizations, I have the ability to create agents that are built into the Copilot for M365 experience. And I've added 2 agents here that are built on enterprise graph connectors. These graph connectors have to be deployed by administrators, by search administrators. And so it is an administrative action to get started with this kind of integration. But I have fully integrated my ServiceNow knowledge base, as well as my ServiceNow incident management platform into Copilot for M365 as a custom agent. And users can come into the knowledge agent and ask information about the knowledge articles that are stored in ServiceNow. And users can come into the incidents agent and similarly ask for information stored in ServiceNow related to the latest incidents and tickets and help desk operations. So here you can see an example of the ServiceNow knowledge agent in action. And you can see that this information is sourced from my own ServiceNow demo environment. And if we go back and take a look at the incidents agent, you can see a similar capability set where because that graph connector is deployed, I can come in here and ask for the agent to give me a summary of the latest incidents that are specific to me, either because I'm a caller and I've submitted this ticket, or if this agent is targeted to our help desk team, then it could focus more on incidents that are assigned to folks in the support team that are supporting that incident. So there's plenty of room to kind of style these things. And again, I've gone way over on time for what we were showing you here, so I appreciate the flexibility for the rest of the team. I'm going to stop it here. Now you've seen Maria showcase how to use Agent Builder to customize agents that focus on SharePoint knowledge. You've seen how I can create agents with Copilot Studio that utilize Dataverse knowledge, that utilize graph connectors to access external platforms like ServiceNow, and the capabilities here are really much more exhaustive than what we've been able to show in 20 minutes. So hopefully this has been a useful and clarifying session here. I'll pass it back over to the other Nick.
Thanks, other Nick, or Nick Prime, as we affectionately like to tell him. Let's see. So, John, I'll go really quick here. Thanks, Nick. That was great. You covered off. I'm going to hit just very quickly a couple of things on adoption. As we went through all that, there was a lot there. So I want to just call your attention to two resources that we released recently. The first is, and I'll drop this link into chat. So if you want to grab these, they're both downloadable zips. If you go to adoption.microsoft.com and then click on Copilot, we have a Copilot Success Kit that includes our new Copilot Chat and Agent Starter Kit. So this takes you kind of through step by step. It's got like handouts, it's got some scenario discovery documents, things like that, to do kind of what we saw up to like the custom agents that Nick kind of ended with. For that, I'm going to go over to MS Learn to go a little bit farther. But if you're trying to like help your business users understand that, it's a great resource. Secondly, to realize some of the productivity gains that Andy talked about, we also just released our 30-day AI journey. This basically is a collection of templates like email message tips of the day that you could drop into Teams or Viva Engage or send out just to help your users get a little bit better on some of their prompt usage and thinking about additional use cases for Copilot. So that is it. Wanted to call both of those out. And now I'd like to introduce for measuring adoption and impact, Stephen Tung and Sanjana Allure. Both of them are program managers inside of the Microsoft, well, I'll let them introduce themselves. All things measurement impact inside of the Microsoft Copilot dashboard, our usage reports, and even some of the customizations that we can do. Let's see. Guys, would you like me to share PowerPoint Live, or do you want to do screen share and take over? I'm flexible with either. Oh, Sanjana, you're on mute. Sorry.
I was on mute. Can you do PowerPoint Live and then I can take over, take control there? Yeah.
Yes. Print it up, and I'll navigate to the slide. It'll probably come up to the opening slide here. Yes, all right. Yeah, we don't see all that again. Okay, so wait, it's going to be amazing. Just give you something to talk about while it comes up. There we go. And I think, is that yours?
Yes. Perfect.
Great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to share a little more about some of the advanced capabilities that you can use to measure adoption and impact across your Copilot M365 usage. And one of those reports that I'll be talking about today is the Copilot Business Impact Report within Viva Insights Analyst Workbench. So with this report, it's really neat because you can now start to analyze the correlation between your Copilot usage with business outcome data. And you can also customize your analysis through any function. So if you're thinking about engineering and you have different organizational OKRs, or if you have legal and you're thinking about different KRs or sales and things like that, it's very easy to customize what you upload and then compare and pull our productivity and Copilot measures to see how they relate to each other. I'll be diving deeper into some of the specific metrics, so just hang tight. Before we get started, I do want to surface this slide because it's very easy and powerful to see what are the different OKRs that you can pull across your organization. So within Microsoft, we've actually pulled different sales metrics, customer service metrics, and seen a significant increase in productivity for our sales and customer service teams who use Copilot as opposed to those who do not use Copilot. So some of the metrics that you can see is even bringing in as easy as like deals created or deals won, or if you want to think about customer service and how many tickets a team closed or how many tickets a person closed. Those are easy metrics to bring in, and then you can put together with the Copilot measurement data. With the Microsoft story, what we've done when we've implemented this specific report is we've seen a 10% increase and 40% increase in more closed opportunities in terms of the sales teams. This slide only talks about what we've done with the sales teams with improved productivity, kind of bringing in that sentiment data to pair along with quantitative data as well. And then the biggest one is faster resolution times. So if you do have knowledge banks and Copilot, they go very much in hand, where you can kind of query and understand an issue that a customer is facing or your end user is facing, and then check out what is the easiest resolution, or even get directed to what the path to resolution might look like. Any questions so far? Anything in the chat?
Nothing yet in the chat on this. We do see, by the way, folks, the questions on agents and agent licensing coming in, so we're back channeling. We'll drop the answers in a second.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Awesome. I'll dive deeper into the Copilot Business Impact Report. If you want to go to this documentation, because we're on PowerPoint Live, you can actually hover over the slide and click on the documentation link. And this is accessible to you, so if you want to dive deeper at your own time, feel free to do so. Starting off with the first page of the business outcome data, this is where once you upload your business outcome data onto Viva Insights, you're able to customize the definitions of what these measurements look like. What does really good metric look like, and what does an average metric look like? So for example, let's take win rate right over here. You can see that there's about 100% of different or you can go up to 100% wins rate, as opposed to the deals created, which goes into the different values for the dollar value. So when you look at the win rate, you can set your threshold of your active good metric, or define your good metric for a win rate. So for win rate specifically, the threshold we've set here is between 50 to 100%. Over here. And then when we go on to the next slide is where we set our Copilot active usage and what our threshold looks like. So for high usage, if we're setting above 200 or 300 actions taken, and then we also can see on the percentile within your company, what does the distribution look like. So based on the distribution within your company, you can set medium, low, and high active usage within Copilot based on the actions taken. Now that we've done the settings for both of these pages, both of these metrics with your business outcome data as well as Copilot actions taken, now we can actually jump right into the PowerPoint or into the Power BI. So for the summary page, this is where you see how your business outcome data relates to your Copilot usage. So if I want to interpret this specific slide, I can see that if there is someone who's using high Copilot usage, their win rate is also significantly higher than the medium and low users. So for here, our low or inactive Copilot users only have 11% average win rate, as opposed to high Copilot users who have about 55% of win rate. So more likelihood to create deals in the sales spaces, or more likelihood to win over deals and create a dollar value profit for your company. And then on the right side, you can also see what the top Copilot features are. being used by the employees who have favorable business outcomes. So this relies on your high usage or high threshold that we created for your business outcome. So if someone has, for example, between 50 to 100% of win rate created, what are the different Copilot features they're using, and how you can actually take action through this and replicate behavior across the other users within those organizations. I'll take a quick pause just to let people grasp what's on the slide, and then I'll move on in a second.
Yeah, this is a great summary. Please, as we go, drop questions in. And also what your own experience has been. If you've had a chance to use one of these and found that a particular metric was impactful as you shared it internally, we'd love to get feedback on that.
Awesome. The next 3 slides are going to be deep dive pages of the Power BI dashboard. So this is where you can really dig deeper into each of the metrics with the business outcome data that you uploaded. So for example, if we take the deals created section here on the left visual, you can see what are the users in the top quartile. So if you think about top quartile as 75% to 100% deals created, what are the Copilot behaviors that likely show this favorable business outcome? And you're kind of correlating not just the applications, but other metrics for Copilot actions taken. And for example, are they returning users of Copilot every day, or are they just taking a lot of Copilot actions when they're on Copilot? Or if they're using multiple different features across different applications. And then on the right side, you're seeing the section to boost opportunity for Copilot usage based on the different product teams. So if you want to see here for this page specifically, we're grouping by organization with different sales teams. So if there's different sales products and the people are tied back into those different organizations, you can see that these people have the highest opportunity to benefit from having Copilot usage. In the next section, you can see how Copilot helps employees with favorable business outcomes get work done. So what are the actual nitty-gritty features that they're using across Copilot? So for example, I personally, as a program manager, use the M365 Copilot chat a lot to be able to bring in all the different sources from PowerPoint, Excel, or Word together in one place and help me analyze or answer a question. So similar to that, if someone has really favorable business outcomes in that higher quartile of their deals created or deals won and win rate, what are the features that they're using? So here we can pick on each of the business outcome metric and then see that Copilot chat prompt submitted is the highest in these groups, and that's favorable or creating a favorable condition for them to achieve their business outcomes. Now, when we're thinking about business outcomes, sometimes your organization may have it aligned to either on a person level or a team level, and it's very easy to convert it to one or the other if you want to upload it. We are only able to take it at a person level today. So if you want to convert it to a person level, you would just map the team into your person organization structure, and then we can pull that KR data into Viva Insights. The last deep dive section is kind of thinking about how much assisted value is it creating using Copilot. So when we think about the impact metrics, we see about the number of Copilot actions and how much hours it's saving based on Microsoft research, which we take about 6 minutes per action for different actions. And you can check out documentation for those details on the research as well. And we take those actions and then convert it to a dollar value. So we use a default value of $75 per hour, but you are able to customize that on your own as well if you want to, outside of this dashboard by creating a custom dashboard. And you can customize that to either organizational or a people level. So if someone is on a level 1 versus a manager or an individual contributor, you can customize those values and bring it into the Copilot business outcome report. Any questions on this last page?
No. One housekeeping though, is it is the session that Florine enabled at Ignite? Is that all still relatively accurate? I'll drop the link into that as well too. Yeah, okay, I'll
Yes,
do that. So we've got a
absolutely.
YouTube, about a 15-minute overview of this as well too. I know when I saw this for the first time, it took me a second to digest it and kind of stare at the visuals and think, okay, what are we going to do? So we find that, yeah, it takes a minute to kind of know what to measure and how to present it. And this is just a wonderful tool to help pull it together. So I'll drop that in. Let's see, no questions yet that we haven't hit on in chat already.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'll
And Nick,
really
I'll
quickly.
also throw some resources into the chat as well for folks, but we've got a lot of resources to help customers with enabling this. So it's not so complex, but we are here to help. So please reach out either back to the team delivering this of Andy, Nick, and myself, or your Microsoft team. Glad to help you get there.
Awesome, thank you. I'll really quickly jump into the data ingestion piece when we're talking about bringing in business outcome data. I just have one quick slide to show there's different methods to bring in your business outcome data. And when you want to start off, you can start off with a pilot group. You don't necessarily need to start off with your entire company. If there is easy accessible data and you sit within either the HR org or your IT org, you can bring in KRs from just your IT org based on either ticket time or kind of project completion time that you already have and track over time uploaded into Viva Insights. So you would just upload business outcome data either through a CSV file upload, or you can try to automate it using Azure Blob Storage. Both of those documentation links are hoverable and clickable on the slide itself. And when creating this, it's, all of us are there to help you. So reach out to your CS teams or your account teams, and we will be happy to bring in a resource to help you find those metrics and bring it into Viva Insights as well.
All right.
Last.
Sorry. Yeah, you got a couple more to clear, don't you? Yeah.
Just last one slide to leave you with, kind of bringing back the different business outcomes from one of my earlier slides. If you want to take a screenshot and start to think about this a little more deeper, just about what outcome metrics you can bring in, here you go. It's your time to screenshot and store it for your records. Awesome. Back to you, Nick.
All right. Thank you. I saw that one. Like, did she do that? Yeah, I love this one too. As like, if you have any kind of like a business analyst role or something, this is a great conversation starter as well. Like, go out to your legal. Who doesn't like talking to them internally and say, hey, I've got some suggestions. What do you think of these processes? Could we optimize that? All right, Andy, I think you're next. If you want to take control and go to slide 17. And I am so sorry I messed up the order of our agenda because we did have Andy up first on a couple of advanced use cases. Sanjana, thank you for your flexibility in leaping in there so quickly. Mr. Morris, I'm going to bring you on the screen. Take her off.
All right. Sounds good. Yes. Thank you, Nick. And actually, this all works out fine in terms of timing because I'm going to be able to pull in a lot of what Nick and Maria showed us and Sanjana showed us into a little bit of a scenario around healthcare specifically, and then really to kind of start to dive into a little bit more about business value and measuring business value because we really find a lot of customers are asking for that these days. So first off, I want to say that what I'm going to show you today is kind of a combination between what we have out there publicly on our Microsoft adoption scenario library out there on our website, and then some of the experiences that we've had with our healthcare customers like yourselves in all of our roles. So the link here is live if you wanted to go out there and check out the scenario library for healthcare. You'll see some very similar things to what I'm doing. What I'd like to do, though, before I really dive into any demos or anything like that, is to really set a context of thinking about Copilot in terms of business value and your organization's journey toward realizing business value with Copilot. And if you've engaged with your Microsoft account team much over the past few months, you may have seen a slide that looks similar to this, because this is really where we've tried to describe what a typical business value journey looks like for our customers. So if we're starting down in the lower left with kind of the foundational section here, this is where you probably spend some time testing, doing the initial setup with the technology, doing some POCs, getting some early users in there. And then we see very soon that, or we see that most organizations pretty easily will slip up into this next level of business value, which is personal productivity. So we see this as just kind of your general Copilot skills. All right, so it's things like summarizing meetings in Teams, summarizing email threads and Teams chats and things like that, and some very basic drafting. And all of those are great time savers and they bring value. But what we're finding is that some of our customers have a real hard time putting an exact value on that time saved. And what I've found when I work with some of my healthcare customers in particular, if you're talking about, say, a shift nurse on a floor who has a shift that goes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., whether they save 30 minutes or an hour with Copilot or not, they're still on the clock till 7 p.m. So there's got to be something more to that time saved metric. They've got to be impacting something else about the business. So was that time saved used to have more hands-on time with their patients or something along those lines? And so in that spirit, I would encourage you and your organization to start thinking about moving even further up on this business value journey into ways that you can integrate Copilot into business processes and realize org value. And that's where we're going to do some work with the KPIs of your organization and how we can link Copilot use cases to affecting the KPIs that your business cares about. And that's where the business outcome report that was just shown is becoming very helpful, and some other tools that we have, including our Copilot dashboard. So in the spirit of that, this slide is out there on our scenario library as well. But what we see Copilot, the way we see Copilot affecting our organizations and bringing value is really in these three areas down here: revenue growth, cost savings and avoidance, and then improving employee experience. And then we see a lot of our healthcare organizations have very, very similar KPIs that kind of map to one of those three goals. And so you see those listed here: when patient customer retention, readmission rates, and so on and so forth. So the goals with Copilot today are to find these use cases that can affect these KPIs, that can bring that kind of value into your organization, and then obviously find a good way to measure that value. We have broken down some of the stuff out there on adoption, on our adoption site by roles, and then we have some sort of sample scenarios that you can start with and try to work into your organization's workflows. And that's kind of what I did here. So what you see here is one of our example scenarios from our adoption site. And I did something for this demo that I would encourage you all to do as well. And that is find one of these scenarios that makes sense in your organization and then customize it to your particular needs. So in this example here, I am using a fictional healthcare company called Smarter Health. And yes, I know there's two T's in Smarter. I've heard a couple of different explanations for why that is. One is that it was so smart it needed two T's, and the other was that the domain with one T was already taken. So I'm guessing it's more the second. But what the Smarter Health environment is, it's a demo environment that a bunch of our technical specialists have been developing over the years, where we can do demos that are more realistic than what we might get in some other platforms. So I kind of developed this flow for Smarter Health. And so I'm going to walk through a handful of demos here that show some of the things on the user side that Nick and Maria were showing earlier with agents. So we'll see some agents in action. We'll see people staying in the flow of their work to get their work done. And ideally, we'll be trying to get to the point where we can find ways to map what I'm showing you back to KPIs. So give me a second here. I'm going to flip my share. And I'm going to bring up my demo tenant. In just a second while I organize here. Okay. So on the screen here, I have a basic web version of a Teams client, and I'm in my Smarter Health organization. And for today, I'm going to be playing the role of Dr. Sally in the Smarter Health organization. And so I have Copilot within Teams here. So I'm going to jump right into Copilot with Teams. And here I can do any number of things that I want to start my day. So my first action item on that flow was I'm just going to do a basic, summary of my day. So I'm going to start by just asking Copilot very basically, summarize my upcoming appointments. Now, this seems like kind of a basic use case, but I think the idea here that we want to wrap our minds around is that we have one place for Dr. Sally to go to start to organize her day. So instead of switching context to different apps, she uses Copilot right here in Teams to see that she's got a patient appointment or 3 patient appointments coming up that she might need to prepare for. She may have some other meetings, so she may also ask Copilot, what other meetings do I have upcoming, and can you help me prepare for any of them? And Copilot goes out and finds, okay, there is another meeting in here you may want to have on your radar, and you might want to get to that and do some reading before you do that. So, staying in the flow of the work, right in Copilot, we're going to move to kind of the next demo. And one of the things Nick showed us earlier is how to integrate ServiceNow into Copilot as well. Well, Smarter Health has done that for Dr. Sally as well. And let's assume that Dr. Sally has some role in managing incidents around her unit. And so she very quickly flips in the same context of Copilot right over here to the ServiceNow incident agent. And so she wants to stay on top of what's going on. And as you can see, Nick and Maria showed, there are some starter prompts for her right here. She'll go ahead and just click into show me the open incidents. And it'll go ahead and give her a list of open incidents in ServiceNow right now. She might need some more details. So if she just says more details on these, please, Copilot will go in, access ServiceNow, stay in the flow of the work, and then give us a little more detail. Now, she's probably going to need more detail than that, so it might take a little more prompting to get there. But as she moves on, let's assume that Dr. Sally has been asked by her leadership for some details around an incident that happened a while ago that was a chemical spill in one of the labs. The leader didn't really have a lot of details. Dr. Sally wasn't exactly sure either. So she gives a very general prompt here, kind of like what was shown earlier. She's able to say, well, find an incident regarding a chemical spill in a lab, because that's really all the information that she has. So Copilot is able to then go in, reason over the ServiceNow data, and find that, in fact, there was an incident with a chemical spill on December 5th, and here's all of the details and what happened. So not only is she staying within the flow of work, accessing a third-party information, she's also using Copilot as what we call the UI for AI. So what you're probably finding in your organization is you've got a lot of different vendors that are coming in with a lot of different AI solutions, which causes a little confusion for your users, as in, where do I go to use what tool and how do I do it? Well, when you use things like agents to snap those data sources into Copilot, like I'm showing here, you make it incredibly simple for your users. And I think that's a really important step in your in your AI journey is how do you simplify that user experience so that using all of these tools doesn't become burdensome, it becomes very easy. So using Copilot as a UI for AI is a great way to do that. So I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit away from ServiceNow, but we're going to stay in here for a second. And since Dr. Sally was asked about this incident by her management, she definitely wants to follow up with them on these details and share those details with them. So she's going to go ahead and ask Copilot to draft an email that summarizes this incident for senior leaders. And since it is going to her senior leaders, she wants to make sure that it uses professional language and stress that she and her team are taking immediate steps to ensure the safety in her labs. So Copilot was able to take that information from the ServiceNow system, draft an email that gives Sally a good starting point. Obviously, she's going to be a wise user of AI, and she's going to use this as a first draft. She's going to proofread it, double check it, make sure that it's accurate and conveying the message that she wants it to convey. And once she's got it in the form that she wants to have it in, she can drop that into an email. She can drop that into a Teams chat or whatever channel she wants to communicate more directly with with those leaders. So staying on the flow for work, notice I haven't left Copilot. I'm accessing multiple systems, and I'm using Copilot as the AI or the UI for AI. All right, to show another one of those agents. So, as we talked about earlier, agents can have multiple data sources, right? So our ServiceNow agent was reaching out to ServiceNow, but Dr. Sally also has another agent here called the inventory agent. And the inventory agent is working off a SharePoint site. And I'll give you a quick look at that real quickly here. I'm going to jump into SharePoint. We'll come back to that in a second. But let's say that Dr. Sally is also in charge of making sure that the supplies on the floor are, replenished and making sure everybody has what they need to do their job. So she can ask that inventory agent, what are the on-hand counts of what they have in their inventory? And you can see down here, this is actually pulling out of an internal SharePoint data source. But for Dr. Sally, she's just stayed in the flow of her work. She hasn't had to jump to that SharePoint site, had the experience I just had where it didn't open the way she wanted it to. It went right to what she was trying to get to and had that information right for her. Now, when we talked a minute ago about how moving up that value chain to more high value use cases with Copilot, we talked about coming up with ways where departments and groups of people can use Copilot together so that it's not just a time-saving tool or a personal productivity tool. It's a tool that gets put in the workflow of a department or some sort of organization. So I've pulled up my mobile device here. So what you're seeing here is basically my screen shared mobile device, iPhone, logged in with Dr. Sally right here. I just want to show you a couple things that she could do on her mobile device related to inventory and other things. So if you look here up in the chat, I'm in the chat node of my mobile device. I have my Copilot icon up at the top. If I go ahead and click on that, you'll see I bring in my Copilot. I'm going to switch back here for a second. And now I'm right back kind of where I was with the user interface in my Teams client. So I can do the same types of things here as I was doing in my Teams client. So if I call back really quickly to my other demo and I say, summarize my patient appointments, and I have it go with there, you'll see on a mobile device, it's going to come up with the same things that it came into on my desktop. So think of this as maybe Dr. Sally's coming in from the parking garage, she has to check, wants to understand her day very quickly, she can do that on her mobile device. Now, she can also access those agents that I was showing over here in the web version by clicking on these three lines in the upper right-hand corner. And as you can see here, we've got those similar agents as before. We've got the inventory agent here. We've got the ServiceNow agent. I'm going to click into that inventory agent for a second, though. And let's pretend for a second that we're not Dr. Sally. Let's say we are somebody who's more focused on, making sure to reconcile these inventory numbers. So if I'm the person who has to go into a supply closet or something like that and make sure that the numbers in the system match what they actually have on hand, I might click that on hand count prompt, much like Dr. Sally did in her web version. And now I'm looking at what we have on hand, and maybe I'm looking at my mobile device and looking at a shelf and saying, okay, do these numbers reconcile? Do they match up? Maybe I find that one doesn't. And I say, change the bandages count to 20. So it had been 25. I went into the closet. I found I've only got 20. So now, okay, I've updated the bandage count to 20 units. So now that changes the document in the SharePoint site. When Dr. Sally runs her report to try to figure out how much she might need to order next, that's reflected there. So now we've put Copilot into a workflow that makes things more efficient on a larger level, not just on a personal productivity level. So finally, as we kind of start to wrap up the demo section here, last thing Dr. Sally may need to do as she looks at that is she now needs to figure out what she has to do to prepare to order new supplies. So if I ask Copilot here and this inventory agent to prepare a list of items that need to be ordered this week, it goes ahead and goes into that SharePoint data source and comes back and says, okay, here are the things we think you need to order for this week. Now, this doesn't look quite right to me, or doesn't look quite the way I want it. So I want it to organize a little bit differently, create a table of these items and include their cost, and provide a total cost in the order table. And it's gone ahead and done that for me. It shows me that I need these things. It's going to total about $4,000 given the quantities that we need to do. And then finally, let's say that Dr. Sally is not the person that does the ordering, but she needs to reach out to a procurement group. So go ahead and draft me an email that will ask the procurement group to go ahead and order those supplies for me. And I've got that drafted right here. So to kind of sum up those demos, and Nick, you could go ahead and bring the slides back up through PowerPoint Live if you would. To kind of summarize those demos, I stayed very much in the same context almost the whole time. I used Copilot as the UI for AI, so I didn't have to switch contexts. I was accessing different data sources, and I was being very efficient in that process. All right, and I'm going to take control back, and I've got a couple of slides to wrap up. Then we'll move on.
Sounds good. While he's navigating, questions, please drop them into the chat. We'll take care of them, or I'll raise them to your attention, Andy.
Great. So this is the kind of last slide I showed. And this was how I kind of took that flow within adoption.com, changed it a little bit for my organization, and created a scenario where I could raise some efficiencies in my organization. And this was showing the technical side of it. But to kind of bring back the business value side of it, if I'm thinking about what did each of those actions do to raise, to help my organization be closer to their goals or increase KPIs, I might think of it in terms of which of those kind of three areas, either revenue growth, cost savings and avoidance, and improve employee experience, each one of those things went into. And so then I might design some KPIs, or if I may already have the KPIs, I might be able to align what those use cases did for each of those KPIs, measure it the way we were shown earlier with the tools that you have at your disposal, and then show some real value in your organization for the use of Copilot. So, sort of wrap up my section here, and then I can pass on to think back to you, Nick. But just some takeaways here. Again, keep it simple for your users as you're starting to think about your AI journey. Use Copilot as the UI for AI. Develop agents to bring data sources into a single user interface that your users can move very quickly through and access information and leverage AI in a very simple manner. And then number two, I put define in parentheses because I think you probably already have your KPIs, but determine the KPIs that matter for your organization, and then map your Copilot use cases back to those KPIs. We want Copilot to be looked at as much more than just a time saver. We know time savings are great. We know we can see those and they're important, but we also want to see Copilot and generative AI as a tool that drives your organization closer to their goals. So understanding those KPIs and how Copilot can map to them is key to that process. And if you need some help in that process, your Microsoft account team has a lot of resources they can bring in to help you with that business value realization. So reach out to your account teams and ask for some business value help. They'll be happy to bring in some people to help out. And then, as we talked about in our measurement section today, figure out what you want to measure and measure it through the tools at your disposal, whether they're the technical tools on the Microsoft side or they're more qualitative tools through surveys and things like that. Measure to determine that business value. And again, Microsoft team is here to support you and help you in that process. And with that, Nick, I think that's all I've got for today.
All right. Thanks, Andy. If you'll stay on, just keep an eye on the chat, folks. If you have questions on some of the scenarios that Andy stepped through, that scenario library that he referenced is a really good one. And it goes through, in addition to healthcare industry, it also goes through horizontal roles like finance, legal, that sort of thing too. So just great. We're in sort of the peak inflection point for AI right now around the world. And one of the biggest things is just figuring out how do we harness that value. So it's great sort of starting points with that and examples what other customers have done. So let's see, Mark, I'll close out that last slide and then move to the survey. And if you'll prepare to come up, help me wrap everything up here in just a second, we'll close it out. I just want to call attention to just one more resource. I'm going to take control back, Andy. And let me jump out too. And that is just kind of, keeping up with changes. Oh, wait, sorry. Let me grab that back. Sorry, Mark, 1 second. we're fighting over PowerPoint Live. There you go. Just a recap, like how do you keep up with all this stuff and where do you find it? And I'll drop these 5 links into chat. The first is the Microsoft 365 roadmap. That hasn't changed. That is our official, this is when we think things are coming. It's also somewhat less authoritative just because it's the roadmap for all the tenants around the globe. And so when we release something, it can take several months before it makes it across into all the data centers and the types of tenants and the different clouds that they're in, depending on what it is. But that's a really good, you can track things by feature ID and see where they're at. I really like the Microsoft 365 blog. And I would encourage you to take a look at that for really good, like high-level summaries, like what we just saw, like the LinkedIn article with the video we saw earlier. That was referenced on the blog. The healthcare scenario example, that's referenced on the blog. I use Feedly to kind of consume a few Microsoft blogs as well as other sources. It's not terribly busy. It's just a nice way to kind of keep up as we go through. The third one is it's a favorite one of mine. It's a downloadable PowerPoint deck, which is a quick summary of what's new. We update this every month, and it just gives a nice visual summary because it includes screenshots and new features. It's meant for IT pros, for sysadmins, and it's also got the previous month's slides archived in it. So that and this next one, the release notes, which I've got a screenshot of them here. These is the same content, but in a bit of a text format So it just kind of goes, actually this one is week by week on what changed. These tend to be pretty minor, but if you do any time of like an agile Scrum overview of your Microsoft 365 environment management, add this to the agenda. It's a really good, quick one to like, okay, here's the stuff that happened this week, quick RACI analysis on it, and then you can make sure that you stay ahead of administration in the tenant. Finally, the very bottom, the Microsoft 365 Message Center, the most authoritative on when something is actually live in our environment. So I'll drop those links in the chat here in just a second. Mark, I want to know, do you anything else you want to come back in to help us close out with, call people's attention to, or recap?
I was just thinking as we went through this, what a day. Internally, we get a lot of this information coming at us, and I know as customers, then we're sending it out to you. So we hit on a lot today. Core productivity, agents, business impact reporting, and Copilot dashboard. Yeah, there is a lot there. We've got links here. We'll send out additional resources after the session. But remember, we are here as your partners. So we want to come help you get this lit up, help you be able to measure it, see that impact and the value that you're getting back. So just really excited about so much going on and helping walk alongside each and every customer that we have as we proceed through this journey. So big special thanks to all our presenters that we had. So today I kind of outsourced some of my areas of this, and we brought in some guest speakers, and they did a great job. So just thank you to everyone. And yeah, we've got, if anybody does have questions, love to see them show up there in the chat, or maybe give our presenters some love here with some reactions. But really appreciate the time. Hope it was valuable for all the attendees.
All right, great. Thanks, Mark. I'll leave this slide up with our survey on it, so you can hit that link or use your phone. Give us some feedback for the March session too. Other things you'd like to go in deeper today. Other topics you'd like to see us explore around harnessing your Copilot superpower. Otherwise, we're going to stay live. We're at the bottom of the hour, so I'll keep us on mute, but we'll stay live here in the chat for about another 5 minutes. If you got questions, drop them in. Happy to hit that. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today, learning a little bit more about what you can do with Copilot in your organization. Thanks, everybody.